Hi everybody, this is Ginger Balch from In Sheep's Clothing Yarn Shop in Torrington, welcoming you to another episode of Focus on Fiber. We're back again. We're in the suds, in the water, and in the wool, making felt today. The other episode we made some felted soap. So today what we're going to do is we're making felted beads so that you can make felted jewelry. Like the necklace that's here, the bracelet. These are really, I do a lot of classes, and these classes are great for adults and children because they're easy and they're fun. And like the soap, you can go take this outside and get all wet and soapy and don't worry about the mess. But if you're inside, you're going to want a few towels because you're going to need soapy water and some rinse water. Now this is soapy water that I add a little bit more dish soap to because you want it a little bit kind of slick feeling and to make our beads. So I don't know if you remember when you were kids and you made the little beads, little marbles with clay. Basically the same idea, except this time we're just using wool fiber. And you need to make sure that's 100% wool fiber. You don't want any acrylic or anything like that in there because it just won't felt. So we have our roving, we have different colors, and you can do whatever you want. This I had fun making a little rainbow bracelet here, but you can do whatever you want. Take your favorite colors of wool roving and just go to town making beads. So we're going to get started right now, and what I'll do is I'm going to take some of my roving. And it doesn't take very much at all. And what I want to do is I'm going to just kind of roll it around. Well, actually, I'm going to just take a little piece like that. And then I'm just going to just kind of roll it around a little tight like this. And you can keep adding more wool to it. It's not a problem. I'll take a little bit more fiber. And I kind of like to open it up a little bit. And then just going to encase that little bead. And you keep going in different directions. Felting works better when you have the fibers going and coming from different directions. So I'm just going to kind of wrap it around like that. Now, the one little thing about felting in general is sometimes it comes out absolutely perfect, and then other times, no matter what you do, you end up with a mess. So let's just hope for the best with this. And it doesn't matter how long, how well you, how much time you've spent doing this. Sometimes you just get a bunch of fiber that just doesn't want to work with you. So now, like with the soap, what we're going to do is I'm going to put the bead in my hand. And then I'm just going to close it up because as soon as I put it in the water, the wool just wants to expand. And once it expands, it's hard to get it back in place and get it felted. So I'm going to keep it in the palm of my hand. I'm going to put it into the water. Now the water, it can be cold, it could be lukewarm, it can be hot, just whatever's comfortable for you. It all works as long as you have a little bit of soap and the friction that we're going to be doing, it will work. So now I'm going to just squish out the extra water. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it around in my hand. And I'm just going to just very gently, kind of like you have, just like pretend you have a little animal in the palm of your hand and you're just very, very, very gently rolling it around. Now the other thing that you want to also do, and this is something that you're going to get good as the more you do, is I feel like I want just a little bit more water in there. You really want to make sure that those wool fibers are totally wet. And I'm just going to squish out the extra. And I'm just going to keep rolling. And you want to make sure that you've got enough enough soap in here. Although you can felt without soap, but just soap hastens it and it just makes it easier to felt. So I always like to add some soap to my water when I'm felting. So I'm just rolling it, and you can change directions and just keep rolling. It's very relaxing. kind of good for kids because they can kind of take a little quiet time maybe and just kind of concentrate on the rolling. Good for adults too, because we certainly need the stress reduction. So then what we can do is just like take a little peek at it and see how it is. It's round, but I can tell that it's still very soft. And we want to keep working it so that the fibers get tighter and tighter and create a nice hard bead that is going to stay intact. We don't want it falling apart on us. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Now another thing that you can do too is if you had an extra towel, you can even kind of roll it around on the towel. You can see what I'm doing here. So you just roll it around on the towel. It will take some of the moisture. You'll have to keep wetting it. But the extra abrasion from the towel on the felt will help make the wool become felt faster. So this actually works quite well. And you just want to keep turning it and just keep working it and working it. Now, you know, it's not going to be snap your finger done, but they do work up very quickly. But the whole idea of crafts is to take your time. Just enjoy what you're doing. Now, sometimes you get the absolute perfectly round bead. And then other times you get these really crazy shaped ones that end up with these little cracks in them. I'm just going to inspect. I have just a slight little crack here, but not too bad. Sometimes as you're working these, I'm going to show you this one. This has like 4 cracks going in it. It actually makes almost like a little decoration in it. But not a big deal, because like the soaps that we did before, you can always make little patches. Once your bead is done, you can add a little piece of dry fiber to it, cover it up, get it nice and wet, and work it some more. And more times than not, it will felt to the bead and cover up the crack. Sometimes it won't take. It's like a Band-Aid. If you get it wet, it won't stay, and you might have to give it a try or two. But most of the time they work okay. And I'm just going to wet this a little bit more because rolling this around on the towel did take out the moisture. But it's the friction and the moisture and you know, a little help with this with the soap that help create the bead. And then what you want to do is, and also, if you want, you can go from little beads to big balls of felt that kids love to play with. Kiddies love felted balls. And sometimes what I've done with children's classes is, you know, the little plastic balls that you can get that have the little bells inside? I take those. I wish I had one to show you because those are fun to make. I take those and I cover it with the wool, kind of like I did with the soap before, and then you felt that. And what happens is, so it makes this felted ball, and at first, until it dries, you can't hear the bell anymore, but once the felted ball dries, you can hear the jingle of the bell in there. Cats go crazy for that. They love those things, and kids love playing with them too, so it's a win-win. So this, I can feel like it's gotten pretty tight now, and looks like I have an almost perfect felted ball here. And you know that it's done when you can't pull it apart. Now you can go as tight, you know, you can make it as tight as you want. You can make it a little softer if you want. I'm going to show you later how to thread these through to make some jewelry. So you want to keep in mind that if you're going to use these as beads and thread them, that if they're super tight, you have to have super sharp needles to get through, because the harder the felt is, the harder it is for the needle to get through, especially when it's wet. So then once this is done, then what you can do is just plop it into, I have some clear water here. Just going to put it in there. And what you can even do that helps the felt really, really get tighter is if you have warm or hot water that you're working with in your soap, have a clear, cool or cold water for your rinse. And that helps the hot to the cold, the hot to the cold. So I'm just going to squeeze out the extra water. And there we go. We have a nice little bead. Now, if you wanted to make multicolored, you can go for it and just add bunches of different colors together and just keep doing them. And you can make them all different sizes. I tend to like the smaller ones. You get to a point, like if you make it really, really tiny, when you get them wet, they kind of get squished, and it's really hard to roll them around in your hand because they're all squished up and wet. So usually it's like I start out with one size, and you can always either do more or add more to it if you want to make the bead bigger. But you can see these were all beads that I've made. They're all different sizes, and like here's another one with a huge crack in it. Now the thing is, even though it has a crack in it, sometimes okay, you can fix it, and other times there's ways of getting around using the bead without even fixing it, and nobody knows the difference. I have beads in here that were less than perfect, but you can't really tell because what I'll show you the little trick when I get to it, when I come to stringing the beads. So what I think we'll do is, you got the idea of how we did the actual bead, and we're going to string some so I can show you how that works. So I'm just going to take this out of the way, put it over there, and we'll put this one over there too so we can work over here now. Okay, so now what you need is you need a really sharp needle. And the thing is, too, you want to make sure that the eye of the needle is not super big, because when we're threading well, what I want to do is I want to add little glass beads in between. If you can see that here, I have little glass beads in between, which just give it a little extra dimension and a little bit of shine to it. I kind of like the idea of the flat woolly bead next to the shiny glass. And then also this little necklace that's here. That's the same thing, is it has the glass beads in between. And I found that if I put two in between, it's better than one, because it really makes the beads stand apart and you can see the glass bead rather than the glass bead kind of getting sucked in between the wool beads. Okay, so that's one thing right there. So we'll get started and show you. Now you can string, you can use yarn, you can use a cotton, heavy cotton thread, a cotton yarn when you go to do your beads. You can even do like what I did with this necklace here, is use a fancy ribbon and just thread your beads with that. You just have to make sure that the yarn can go through the needle and then go through the beads. So you might have to play a little bit with that, but this works really well. So, and another thing that you can also use, and this is what I used for the bracelet, and this is great for kids because it's just easier. Elastic, because then you can just put it on. You don't have to worry about any clasps or anything. But you can also, and I'll talk about that too, but you can do clasp too. But I mean, that's so easy just to do elastic. So what I do is you just take your elastic, and I just realized something, that another thing, well, actually I have this. You might want a needle threader, and I just realized I have a nice little metal needle threader that I like to use, but I don't know if this is going to work. This is, I don't know what they call them. I get them from my dentist. It's a floss threader. It's perfect for when you're beading, because you can pick up, you put your yarn through the end here, and then you pick up your beads, and then they slide down onto your yarn. So this thing is an excellent, very inexpensive, and easily found bead threader. So let's see if I can possibly, I might have to use the bigger needle to go through. There we go. And now what I would do is I would take my elastic, there we go, I go through the beader, and that thread my needle. Let's see if we can get it through. Yep, get it through. Okay. So now if you have all your beads made and they're wet, you can go ahead and thread them. It might be a little bit more challenging because they're wet. they tend to be a little harder to get the needle through. But if you can be patient, if you use a dry bead, the needle goes through much more easily, and then of course the rest will go through more easily. So I'm just gonna, and of course it depends too on how much you felt the bead. But so what I do, okay, and the other thing that I said, we had a little trick. So like say that you end up with a bead that looks more like a little Pac-Man, and it's got all kinds of cracks in it. What I do is I take my needle and I kind of like, I look at the bead and I say, okay, this one really isn't too bad. It really doesn't have too much cracks. We'll get one that has cracks in it. See this one here? So what I would do, instead of beading along the edge so that you can still see the crack here, I take my needle and I go right through the crack. This way the beads will be on top of each other and it eliminates the crack. So there we go. So I pull it through like that. And I'll take another bead. I had a kind of fun, I took a needle felting needle and I felted some colors on this. So I'm going to put my needle through, and you want to kind of try to look at it so that it's, you know, going through evenly. And if you have a hard time getting the needle through, what I would sometimes do is find a hard surface, you know, your table or book or something, and you put it down and you push the needle through as much as you can, and then you could try to pull it through. This one isn't too bad. There, I'm going to pull that through. There we go. So there's our beads like that. And just grab another one. There we go. It's pretty centered. And pull that through. Now, if you want to, now this one has a bigger eye, so I don't know that I can get my glass beads through that. But ideally what you would do is you would just take your glass bead and thread it onto your needle. Oh, this one worked. This one has a really big hole in it. Okay, so I put a glass bead on there. And let me do 2, because 2 always seems to work a little better. Of course, I mean, you can do as many as you want. You can go crazy. We'll do 3 beads. Okay, this needle's actually working quite well. And then what you can just do is take another bead. And this one is a little tighter than the other ones are. There we go. Sometimes you might even need a little tiny pair of pliers to help the job. Pull that through. There we go. Okay, and there we go. Look at that. With the beads through there. And then you could do the same thing on the other side. And, you know, it's like beading. You know, you can lay your beads out either by size, by color, you know, put your little glass beads through if you want, and just string them up like that. Now, when I'm using the elastic, I'll just kind of get an idea about how many beads I want to use. And then you can try it on. Make sure that it fits, and then when you go to, and the nice thing about the elastic is all you have to do is tie it, and you just want to snug it up so that when you go to I'm going to put a few more beads on here so I can really demonstrate how that works. Okay, we want a few more glass beads on here, and then you can just slide these down. And then another bead. These are really firm. That one I didn't get on evenly. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay. And then sometimes you really have to kind of work it to get it onto the needle. Like this one is definitely, this was a very firmly felted bead. There we go, got it. Okay, so there we go. So I just love how the glass beads look in between the regular beads. I really just think that makes it. So we'll throw a few more beads on. Every once in a while you'll get some beads that might not want to go through, so, you know, just choose another bead. There we go. Okay. There you go. So like if you wanted to, we'll do one more because we want, yeah, we need a few more here. And then we'll do one more bead. There we go. And let's see, let's do another bead. Oh, this is a nice soft one, nice and easy. Okay. So then you might just want to think, of course I don't have any scissors, so I can't cut this. But anyway, so let's just do this. So we would tie it, and you want to tie it nice and snug once you've made sure that it's going to fit your hand. I mean, this is like a little baby one, so this we're just pretending. So then you just want to tie it nice and tight, do another knot, 2 or 3, whatever makes you feel good. And you can also end it with some beads too. And then you just want to cut it just nice and tight, and what'll happen is they'll kind of snug through each other, and you can't even see the knot. But there you go, nice and easy. Now if you wanted to do the necklace, what I just did was you take your ribbon and you just figure out how long you want it to be and give yourself some extra, and then cut. I like to do a few. Now this one here I did a chain, but since I've done that, I've come up with some easier ways of doing this. Is just taking some strands, and then let's take this off of here, and just take your fancy yarn or your ribbon, and let's see here, thread your needle. There you go. So what I find I like to do, depending on the size of your bead, you might want to do, I find one's a little, depending on how thick or thin your yarn is, I find 2 looks nice. It just gives you a little more going on. You can even do 3 as long as you can get it through your beads. Oh, and I have a little tip for that with your glass beads. So let's just say, like, okay, we're going to do this, and let's do the beads here. Yeah, these are a little firmer beads. Okay, so get this on. There we go. Okay, see, it goes a little harder through the, but look, this, I love sparkle with the felt too. I think that looks so pretty. So we'll do a couple more, we'll do some glass beads in between just so you can see. There we go. Okay, so these thread through. There we go. Sometimes they need to be encouraged. There we go. Oh, this is perfect. So then we do another bead like that. There we go. And you can let your creative juices just go with this because this is just so much fun. And these make beautiful gifts. So there we go. Look how pretty that is, with the glass bead in between and the shiny yarn. And so can't help myself, we'll just do a couple more. So I'll put a couple more glass beads on for our end. And then what you can do is I'd probably finish it off with a felted bead. Okay. And say that you're done. Say that you've got all your beads on. Then what I would do is we would have several strands, and I would just tie a little knot at the end just so it doesn't go sliding. So you see right here how I have a knot at the end of the bead here and a knot at the end of the bead there. And it just kind of keeps it in place. And then what you can do is you can either, if it's for a child and they're doing it and you want to make it easy, you can just knot them. Okay, it's going to be behind your neck. You're not going to see, but look how pretty that is. Or if you really wanted to get a little fancier, you can take the little jewelry clasps and just either sew or tie them at either end. And then you're good to go and it's all finished. If you make it long enough, you can do a very little knot that you can't see, and nobody's going to notice it in the back, and just do that. So you can go do whatever you want. Make the whole thing beaded. Let the yarn show and be beautiful. I'm very, very partial to this particular, it's called like a ladder yarn, but this one happens to have a little shine to it, so it's like really, really special to me. But it does work very, very pretty. And the other thing too is because the felted beads are so lightweight, when you add the glass beads in there, it gives it a little bit more weight so that it stays in place a little bit better. So anyway, that's why I like the glass beads. So now that you know how to do the beads, you can go crazy and you can make tons of jewelry. You can enlist your children to help you out. You can get your friends together and have a blast doing this. So I really hope that you will give this a try and have a little fun in the suds and in the wool and in the water, and in the process, not to forget to have a focus on fiber. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.